Hey, Jen, how are you?
I'm good. Andrew, how are you today?
I am wonderful. Super happy to be here today. We're going to talk about gratitude this episode. What do you think gratitude is?
Yeah. Well, the readiness to show appreciation for and to return kindness.
Wow, that sounds like a lot of hard work. I mean, we talked a little bit last session about gratitude and how we can start to instill it in our daily lives in small ways. And I think we want to talk about that some more on this podcast, yeah?
Yeah, let's dive into gratitude and how we can live.
Sounds good. Let's do it. You're listening to the podcast No Expectations, where we discuss all things spiritual. My name's Andrew, a lifelong Zen bodhisattva, recovering yogi, yoga instructor, and author. And I'm here with my friend and student, Jen.
I'm a busy mom, a cyclist. I love to spend time in nature and on my mountain bike, and a yogi. I've been asking myself bigger questions about being on a spiritual path, and I've been asking Andrew a lot of bigger questions about this journey. And we invite you to join us on it. Maybe we'll make you laugh, maybe we won't. No expectations.
So we're talking about gratitude today. A very important book in my learning was Dojin's How to Cook Your Life, Zen Kitchen to Enlightenment, and the understanding of the role of the head chef, a tenzo, in a Buddhist monastery, and how important it was the way they handled food. And it really wasn't in my interpretation of the book, it wasn't so much the role of the head chef, or it was how food was handled to create gratitude in our daily lives, and the responsibility that came with that, and learning to be appreciative of whatever you had, because in this instance, in the monastery, a lot of the food was donated or was grown in the monastery garden, and it wasn't always of the highest quality. And you may have gotten some cheap mustard greens, and then maybe somebody donated some beautiful sweet potatoes from their garden, or something like that. But it's the idea that Dojin's talking about, that we need to treat everything in our lives as a gift and treat them of equal value. And that's, for me, was the jumping off point of understanding and instilling gratitude in my daily life, and understanding that it starts small and it continues to stay small as we move forward with it. Talk to me about gratitude in your life.
I picked up a practice. I think maybe I had heard from you early on, and when you were teaching me how to meditate and just even the yoga asanas, and we had met for coffee once, and as the barista was handing us our coffee, you said to them, instead of just "thank you, have a great day," you said, "I'm grateful for you." And I absorbed that, and I remember that moment where you were truly telling this person, "Thank you. I saw the work that you put into making this cup of coffee, and I'm grateful that you were there." And that shifted my thinking in a lot of ways of being grateful and saying it with intention and purposefully. So, it's allowed me to show gratitude, and whether it's understanding where my food or my coffee comes from, or just my day-to-day, little moments.
Yeah, I think we take food, we'll go back to food here, but we take food for granted a lot in our lives. And we just kind of pass over it. And, for those of you who eat meat, you've got a great piece of steak, and you've got to treat it with great reverence, but everything else on the plate's kind of like, but,
just for looks.
And as somebody growing up in a family that didn't have a lot of money, and Irish immigrants, I was telling the story to somebody the other day about a corned beef. a corned beef, and like it's a very low grade cut of meat. And you do the best you can with what you have. Mm-hmm. And if that's what showed up on your table and you're, or in your kitchen to prepare for a meal for your family, you did what you did with it. You threw a bunch of spices in it, you put it in water, and you boiled it for a couple hours.
Add potatoes or something to beef it up.
And it was nourishing. It wasn't great, but it met the requirement, right? But you still handled it with the utmost care, because when you're poor and didn't have a whole lot, that's what you had, and that was it. And so from a society standpoint, a Western society where we have so much access to food here of all different qualities from all over the world, and we don't really take the moment to consider just how beautiful that is, and then we waste a whole bunch of food. Waste a whole bunch of food. I'm probably guilty of it as well. I went to the market the other day and I was like, oh, there's all this great stuff, and I bought all this stuff. I have no idea what I'm going to do with it, but it's in my refrigerator right now. But I think it's about coming back to the idea of everything that we have, we need to start small and be thankful for it, be happy for it, and say thank you to it.
Yeah.
Does that sound weird?
No, having right now 2 small kids, elementary age kids, I repeat a lot to them to be grateful. Whether it's food or all the activities. Christmas just passed. We celebrate Christmas, so all the things that they get, and I find myself repeating a lot. Well, they hear you get what you get, and you don't pitch a fit pretty often. But right. I could see an opportunity for me to kind of shift that to let's be grateful for what we have. And whether it's the food on the table that they don't like, kids can be picky eaters, and there's a lot of waste. And, teaching my kids by my own actions of a process or a way to be grateful for what we have is so important, because I think I'm instilling in them those little bitty pieces of gratitude and how it's developed in their everyday lives.
And what are some of the ways that you use those, develop the gratitude with them?
Well, you can notice it like I did with you. Seeing you show gratitude and your receiving of this coffee, noticing it, seeking it out, finding ways to, whether it's a big thing or a small thing to be grateful for. Another way is paying very close attention. I think, what did you say in the other one, in the other podcast about the carrot and how we're looking at the carrot, and are we cleaning the carrot to remove the dirt, or are we removing the dirt from the carrot? So just paying really close attention to the minor, many details. And I think the biggest way that we can show gratitude is expressing it. And we kind of started this off as saying, I'm grateful for you, and having gratitude for even the big things in our life is.
And I think it's hard for some people to get their arms around gratitude when maybe things in life aren't going great.
Yeah.
And it is about taking that opportunity to look around at your life in whatever shape it is in, and finding even the smallest things to say, I'm grateful for that.
There's always something to be grateful for.
And we suffer from society of comparing ourselves to others, whether it be on social media or just in our daily lives of going to the gym or the grocery store. And that's toxic. We need to maybe turn ourselves off from those things, turn off social media, and give ourselves the opportunity to be happy with what we have, and be, know that that's a good thing.
I think it is absolutely impossible to show gratitude in all things if we're not present in every moment. And being able to exist in every moment and see every moment will allow you to be grateful.
Yeah, and I mean that's a different challenge, and that's a topic for another podcast. Is being in every moment. When back to the corned beef, when you don't have anything, when you're concerned about what the next thing's gonna be on your table, it's hard to be in that moment, any other moment than like what's happening next in a stressed out moment.
Stressed out and thinking, about being able to pay bills, or am I going to be able to get the kids to where they need to be, or my car is about to die, so there's a part of me that is constantly in this moment of like, am I going to break down the side of the road now? But as of right now, my car is still running, and I'm grateful that she continues getting me to point A, B, C, and D. That's a cow.
I want to know more about that.
I drive a Ford Flex, and it is kind of like a grandma car. The grandma who had to give up her van. It's just graduated to a Flex. I love it.
I don't want to say it suits you, but it suits you.
Thank you for that.
I just want to pull this one little bit from this book on how to cook your life. I think it's appropriate here.
Is this our quote for the day?
We can play with it.
All right.
We'll see how it goes. I think it's just it's applicable here. When we no longer see ourselves simply as cogs in the wheel of society and awaken to the true self in a total sense, then the meaning of our daily lives is bound to change. There is no need to compare ourselves with those around us, nor put ourselves into awkward and painful situations. Rather, it is vital for us to take the utmost care of that world in which we live out our total self. And I think care and gratitude start inside of us, inside the small moments, and they just go outwards. And when you meet that guy at the coffee shop who's prepared your coffee so lovingly, and you say thanks, and you mean it, it's understood. And maybe that gives him that moment where he's like, I'm doing good here. And he can go home, or the next person that he meets, he spreads that. And that is contagious.
Gratitude is contagious.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And we forget that. And the more we work with that, and the more we share that with ourselves and others, then we can create a better place for all of us. And it takes work, and I don't deny it. But just give yourself that chance.
Start small.
No expectation. Jen and I met in a yoga studio. I was teaching yoga asana in a new studio, and I think, Jen, you had come in as kind of a New Year's thing, if I remember correctly. You had wanted to get into yoga.
Yeah, I had wanted to get into yoga, and so as one does, I had my my goals, and at the time I would write down every day, every workout I did. So if I went to the gym and I did strength on, January 1st, if I ran a mile, ran 2 miles, and if I did yoga, I would write that down, and I had it day by day. And so in January, I started, told myself I would get back into yoga, and this yoga studio opened, I think, in February, and I was one of the first people there, and I had taken a class, and then you had a class that was on the schedule. I was like, oh, we'll try that one, because at that point I was just I was throwing anything against the wall to see what would stick. So
when at that point when you were thinking about yoga, what did it, in your mind, what did it look like?
Deep down inside my mind, I believe that I was looking for a spiritual journey of somehow.
Now you know that.
Now I know that.
So can you go back in time a few years and tell me what that looked like?
Yeah, I was journaling on occasion, and I was, at the time, I was pushing my body physically to, I signed up for a half marathon, and I was biking many miles at a time and just doing all these things to push my body. And I felt like yoga was a way to physically kind of work out some of the soreness. And I liked the idea of getting into an arm balance or a headstand. And I thought that would be really cool to do. So yoga became a physical endeavor.
And it kind of fed into your, and I mean this in the nicest possible way, but your type A personality of goal-oriented.
No one has ever called me type A before in my life.
Well, I'm glad that
I've never been called that before. Well, I have been called intense.
First. That's all I have to say about that.
But yes, I need to control and push and meet these goals. For sure, yoga was...
So the idea of yoga, which is not uncommon for you, was it's all physical.
All physical.
It's all physical. There's sweat involved.
No, there was some aspect that I thought that I like the smell of patchouli, and but I saw that there was like this spiritual overtone to yoga that I was seeking in actively, if that made sense. So yoga, just like I think I said in an earlier recording, it was like a gateway drug for me. And maybe drug's not the right word, but I definitely saw like something about sitting on the yoga mat.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people do. They find that it's an entry point into maybe, and they don't realize it at the beginning, that it's an entry point into a spiritual, deeper journey. A lot of people show up because they're attracted to the idea of it create flexibility or movement and those things.
I just spent $100 on these yoga pants.
Right,
I'm gonna look good in them.
They're not going to wear themselves. So
I don't spend $100 on my yoga pants, FYI.
Yeah, anymore.
Target.
So we do not endorse any products on this program.
None. But close. We do endorse.
So as you started to show up to my class and others and doing yoga asana and some pranayama breath work, what started to change for you?
So for me at the time when we shifted to a virtual yoga class.
So to put into perspective, we had just met, this is 2020?
Right before.
Early 2020, right before COVID. Mm-hmm. Jen and I were having just a very cursory conversation, I was trying to understand Jen. I, being a yoga teacher for a long time, can really understand a human being before they do most oftentimes, and I don't mean that as some sort of magic trick. I could just sense the energy, and I could sense Jen's energy and just kind of where she was. So we had some some conversations about that, and then COVID hit, and I moved all my classes online, and I would teach 6 days a week.
6 days a week, every evening.
Yeah.
There was a small group of us that we would meet online.
Yeah.
And there was a class where after the class, I might have bawled during the class. I just remember crying and just feeling this really deep emotion that was not about the asana work at all. And I think that was a tipping point for me where I started seeing that yoga had so much more to offer me. And it got deep and it got raw and it was ugly for a while.
Right.
Ugly, just emotional, feeling really, these long hidden emotions that the asanas kind of pulled out for me. And then, fast forward to today, and I can't remember the last time I practiced yoga in a classroom setting, but I practice yoga every day.
Right. Well, the discipline of yoga is something that we need to be practicing 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And that requires real discipline. The
discipline of yoga? You mean I should be doing downward dog, doing my sun salutations 24/7?
I know you're toying with me now. this act of mindfulness and the journey with ourself and that study of ourself should take place all the time. And that's something that most people don't either understand about the discipline of yoga or don't want to understand. They want the idea of just coming up, show me my flexibility, let me show you my arm balance, let me show you how I've progressed physically. And for whatever reasons, they're not always excited about the spiritual part of it. You know, they're like, oh, I don't want to drink the Kool-Aid. I just want just all the benefits and the physical attributes that the asanas can provide me. And so as Jen and I continued our journey together as teacher and student, we had a deeper connection, and we spent a lot of time studying the Yoga Sutras from Patanjali, and we took a deep dive into those together, and so she could understand and ask questions. And I think those are things that we're going to continue to talk about during these podcasts. Mm-hmm. But the one thing I think that, you know, when we started reading the Yoga Sutras together was that there are no definitions of or no descriptions of asanas inside the Yoga Sutras. There's no alignment cues. There's no pictures.
No pictures.
You were sorely disappointed.
Much to my surprise.
There are none of those things. And there are no descriptors of like which asanas you should or shouldn't be doing. Basic description of the asana is that the postures need to be steady and comfortable.
Just steady and comfortable.
Steady and comfortable.
So this idea to push myself into an arm balance.
Day 5. Yeah, I was like, no, we're not doing that.
Yeah.
And I've, you know, my experience as a teacher, when I say that to a new student who's come to me, which I don't know anything about, they're like, hey, can you teach me a complex asana? I'll say no. Mm. And they'll get upset with me and they'll walk out, or they'll go tell the owner of the studio, well, he wouldn't teach me that. It's because you haven't gone through the journey to get to that point. It's not that I'm trying to deprive you of something. There are no shortcuts.
There are absolutely no shortcuts in this journey.
So back to your, if I can, your experience with the yoga asana is that the more you did that, it kind of unlocked something inside of you past the physical into the emotional. And if I let you come into my class day 5 and I taught you a great complex asana, which you may or may not have physically been able to do, I don't recall, would I have deprived you of your journey with yourself? I certainly believe that.
Absolutely.
I would have deprived you of that opportunity to go through that, to find that, because you were on your way, on your path, and then COVID hit, and it, in my estimation, accelerated that for you.
Oh yeah.
And accelerated it for a lot of us. And the conversations that Jen and I had at that time were, you know, where a lot of people were freaking out and like losing this idea of what control was, and you know, we were having deep conversations and like trying to enjoy it, and saying that the universe had provided us an opportunity to find some depth here. And
we took it. You know, there were many opportunities early on where, you know, I didn't have to show up for our scheduled, and we were still meeting online for all the, you know, we were having a FaceTime call, and there were many times where I could have dipped out, or you could have not showed up, but you know, we kind of took that opportunity that the universe gave us and just dove headfirst into.
And I think it's required, and not to discount anyone's journey with the physical parts of yoga. I think that's where a lot of people show up, right? Because when I hear them, when new students come to me, particularly new times, the new parts of the year, you know, they've been to the doctor and they say, oh, my doctor says I need to do yoga. Well, what's that? You know, what is that? Define that for me. Tell me what that is to you. And then when they start to find other deeper things inside of it, that becomes challenging because sometimes we're not ready for those deeper things.
Do you see a lot of students kind of at that point stop showing up? It happened a lot.
Yeah, because there's pain and fear, and those are two things that the human condition is naturally adverse to. We don't want to go through those things. We don't, it doesn't feel right.
I remember telling you that I felt like I had been ripped open, and it just felt raw and exposed. That was just the two words that kept describing to him how I felt. And it wasn't pretty, and it was, just the spiritual process allowed me to tap into some really deep old emotions and then let them go. And I'm so grateful that I had the space and the time, and that you showed up for me in that moment to allow me to, I told my husband at the time, it's like Andrew cleared a path for me, like cleared the pit and then just let me jump in. And I just encourage anyone, if you find yourself hitting that uncomfortable, don't want to go there, don't want to open that door, just take a step in, because there's healing and there's power and there's so much beauty in it.
And it's, again, back to pretty much, I think the running theme through all our podcasts is that you have to continue the journey. You have to stay on the path, whatever you've decided to do. You have to continue down that road, even though you might find a roadblock or discomfort or pain. You have to continue, because if you dip out and you jump off the path, and then maybe later down the road you come back, it will be more difficult. And then you'll be upset with yourself, like, why did I do that? Why did I step away when I was so close, right?
Yeah.
A good friend of mine who's a black belt in the arts of jiu-jitsu and travels all over the world and competes, we talked about the idea of plateauing. And the art of jiu-jitsu is more than just a physical piece. There's a mental piece. It's a mental game. And I was asking him about plateauing, and he says plateauing usually means when you get to the point where you feel like you're not going anywhere. As a cyclist, you understand this too. You feel like, well, my performance isn't getting better. Like I'm just kind of maxed out, right?
Yeah.
There's nothing here. It's usually that point when you plateau in a spiritual practice or in jiu-jitsu or in whatever endeavor you're on, is that you're about to make a really large breakthrough.
Yeah.
But you have to keep pushing past that dull part, past that space where it's just flat and you're not finding anything, and give yourself that chance to maybe see what's on the other side. And it may not be what you expect, because we don't want expectations.
To drop the expectations.
Yeah. So that's the thing too, is if we think that if I continue on this plateau, this linear path, and that on the other side of that there's going to be some great thing, you might be disappointed. But continue going down there and see what you find. And I think that's what you found in yourself. If I just and I've done in my own journey, and not just make this all about like dissecting your journey. My journey was the same way, is that working with the pain of the past is cathartic and is required, and that it's a burden that you have to lay down, and if you continue to work through it. So find your way. Get yourself into a yoga class. Start to use your asanas. Do your pranayama exercises. Do all of those things. Sit in meditation. Do all of the parts of the discipline. Learn to speak to yourself with kindness. Learn to speak with others with kindness. And then it will start to just make sense as it all just kind of unlocks. But we've got to continue. And I think we're going to continue our journey with Yoga Sutras and deeper conversations with that throughout our series on this podcast, and I'm actually looking forward to it.
It's so important. My eyes were opened when we were studying the sutras, and how my shift from, how many times is yoga mentioned? It's 2, right?
Yeah.
It's 2. The postures of yoga is just a small part of what it means to live yoga.
Yeah. Live yoga, and it is, like, again, it is a discipline that requires a lot of hard work. But my experience is that the benefits are well worth the endeavor.
Absolutely.
So keep up the hard work. We'll continue talking about this.
All right, so our thought for the day is, even as a violet, we desire to bloom like a rose. Why can't we be content with being a violet? What do you think of that, Andrew?
Well, I think it's right on. We always want to be something we're not, or we see something in society that thinks like we need to be like that, our body needs to be that shape, or we need to have those types of clothes or drive that type of car, when we should just be happy with what we have and the version of ourselves. Because it's impossible for a violet to become a rose. Is it not?
Impossible, yeah.
So what do you think about that?
I think it's an interesting thought to consider in this discussion of giving gratitude or being, grateful with what we have, and accepting that this body and this mind, whether we think it's scarred or needs improvement, it is ours, and owning it and just accepting it, and then, changing what we can, like the violet can continue to grow up and continue to seek sun and catch the rain and grow deeper into the roots, and that's what we're supposed to be doing in our own bodies.
It's like being okay with what you are.
Yeah.
And just seeing the beauty in that. And sometimes that's difficult.
Roses aren't all that awesome anyways. Thanks for listening. You can follow us on Instagram and Facebook at No Expectations, the podcast. And there you'll find a link in our bio to our Spotify, where we will be posting new episodes. You can message us your questions or comments. We'd love to hear from you. Please like and share our podcast with your friends and family. Thanks for joining us on this conversation.